Okay, so this is going to be a quick tutorial on how to use the Carnegie program online. The page that we're on right here is what you'll typically be looking at when you log in initially. And what this is this is an overview of whatever section you're on. So here if you look, our unit is our first number, so we're on the unit of linear patterns, and we're on the section 1, which is finding linear patterns with positive rates of change. Everything that you see on this page, this is the lesson. This will give you all of the information and example problems that will help you get through the problems. If we go back up and you see on the top right here, we have a list of definitions. These are the definitions that will be used in this section, and if you need a definition, you can click on it, and it will actually pop up another window with the definition and then the example of where that definition can be used. So when we go to start problems, when we do the problems, we click on the top right where the mouse button is, where it says start problems, and then your problem will actually show up. So if you look at what we have here, what you first want to notice is this top right hand corner where it says skills. This is what your entire goal is with doing these problems. We want to build these skills up, and if you click on the box as I just did, it tells you all the skills that you're trying to get. And if you notice the bars to the left, they're all green bars. You want to take these green bars and you want to grow them by getting correct answers. And once you get all of your green bars to turn to gold bars all the way through, you'll move on to the next section. So let's go through this actual problem and show you how these green bars move and some of the things you're supposed to be doing. Now, this tutorial is specifically for understanding how the program works, not necessarily how to do the problems. We might have future tutorials on showing you how to do specific problems. So we're going to start with the quantity name, and for this specific problem, and most of these problems, you'll look right to this paragraph. It says to write an expression, define a variable for the time. So the quantity name is going to be time here. And then it keeps going and it tells us to write a rule for the distance in miles. So our quantity name over here is going to be distance. So we type in distance. Now what we want here is unit. If you go up to your skills, identifying the unit is actually one of the things that we are trying to master as a skill. So if we look at our problem, we want to know what our unit in time is. So in this case, it's hours. So watch what happens when we type in hours. If we type in hours and we hit enter, you're going to notice the top green bar is going to start to go up. So you see this green bar increasing. That's showing you that you're actually doing this correct. Now, if we go to this unit in this problem that we're doing is miles. But let's say that we type something different in. Let's say we type in meters, which is another unit for distance. Watch what happens to the green bar after we hit enter, because this is an incorrect answer. The green bar is going to actually go down because you didn't get the answer correct. So the program is not going to let you move on until you're mastering these time and time again without making any mistakes. So you'll also notice we have a red bar here, and it'll give you some type of hint. So it says meters is a unit of length or distance, but it is not the most appropriate one for this problem. So it's trying to help you through this to get the right answer. So we'll put in miles now, and you'll notice that our answer is now correct. We move on to the next one. You actually can go through on any of these at any point and answer any of them in any order that you want, but it will not let you continue on to the next problem until you've finished it. Notice it says there's more work to do on this problem, so therefore we can't move on to the next problem until we get this completely right. So let's go through this. It says it highlights what you're trying to answer. So notice the highlight says how far will you have flown in 2 hours. So that's the answer that we're trying to, the question we're trying to answer. So we know in the hours column they're telling us 2. So we're going to type in 2. And notice again, when I hit enter, some of my bars are going to go up. You see that second bar went up a little bit. And now for this part, this is pretty important, and this is a big mistake and a big hang-up that a lot of students have, is understanding that this program can actually be used as a calculator. In the problem, we know that we're traveling at 325 miles per hour, and we know we've traveled for 2 hours. Most of you are going to want to just use a separate calculator for this, but understand that this program is a calculator in itself. So I know that the answer is going to be 325, and I'm going to multiply it by 2, which is the number of hours. So notice that's what I've typed into my space there is 325 times 2, and when I hit enter, you're going to notice that it does the calculation for you, which is very important. Okay, that makes things a whole lot easier when you're trying to do it. and it'll even do order of operations for you too. So moving on to the next problem, in this case they say how many hours are required for the plane to travel 325 miles. So you have to be very careful in reading the problem. It's giving you the amount of miles here. So we're going to go to the second column and we're going to type in 325. And notice you're going to have more bars going up here. So then they're going to want us to figure out how many hours it would take to travel 325 miles. Now, let's say in this case you didn't know this. Let's say you didn't know what the answer was. Well, there's a couple of things that you can do here. Instead of guessing, which I would not recommend you do, there's a couple things up here that will help you. You can either go to an example, and what an example will do is it'll take you to an entirely different screen doing a different problem, but a very similar problem. Okay, so you can go through this and it's going to tell you exactly what to do. So in this case, it's telling you what to type in. It says the time worked. So let's type in the time worked. You can hit enter. And then it's taking you box by box, telling you what to type in. What it's also doing on the left-hand side here is it's highlighting what is important in the problem for you to be paying attention to. So in here it says your earnings, and that's exactly what they're telling you to type over here. So you could type in your earnings, and it'll still allow that. And then notice as we're moving on to the next boxes, it highlights some new stuff. So it actually gives you a feel for what the problem is going to be like and what they're expecting you to do. Okay, so let's go back to the problem. And let's say the example still doesn't help you. You can also use a hint, and it will give you a hint in the problem. But beware, you can't just use a hint on every single problem because sometimes your bars will go down. So in this case, if we take a hint, notice your bar started to go down. Okay, so you want to be very careful about when you take a hint, and then it's going to try and help you through it without giving you the answer at first. It wants to help you think about the problem. It says, is the number given in this equation an input or an output value? Well, in this case, we already know that it was an output value because we already typed it in. So in this case, we will have to go to our next hint. And then it says, how many hours does it take to get the distance that the airplane flies to be 325 miles? So they're trying to get you to think of it again. So hopefully from there you're saying, oh, it'll only take 1 hour to go that far. So we'll type in 1, and we see that that's our answer. And then the hint box goes away. Okay? The other thing is that we have to be aware of is also wrong answers without using a hint will also make our bars go down sometimes. So in this case it says, how far will you have flown in 5 hours? Well, let's see what happens if we type in a wrong answer here. So instead of typing in 5, let's type in 3. If you notice, your second bar, it came down again. Okay, so it's very important for you to do these problems correctly, but don't be afraid to use a hint and use your examples to get the hang of the problem, so that way you can actually do them correctly in the future and make your bars go up. Using hints all the time is not going to help you. Okay, the idea of this is for you to learn it on your own through the practice of the examples. Okay, so let's put in the correct answer here. We have 5. Okay, and again, we have 5 hours. We know how to find the answer. We said it was 325 miles per hour, and we can multiply that by the number of hours. And again, I'm using this as a calculator. And when you hit enter, it gives you your answer. And then we come down to the expression. The expression is pretty important. You're going to see a lot of this throughout this entire program. The expression. The first column, which is always where you're defining a variable, you can put in whatever variable you want. This is just defining what you want hours to be represented by. Most people will say H, okay? So there's your H. That's your variable. What this is this is your expression that you're using to figure out how many miles you went. So this is where you're going to have H in your expression. But you have to be very careful here because we know it's 325 times the number of hours. But notice if I put in a different variable here, you have somewhat of a problem because if I hit enter, it won't accept it. And the reason is because you have to use the same variable that you defined over here on this left-hand side. So let's retype this in, 325 times H, and now we've completed our entire problem. And notice our bars are much higher than they were when we started. And when we go to the next problem, it'll be a very similar problem, and we're going to keep trying to get these bars to go up. So when we click done, it'll move us on to the next problem.